everyone. Thank you for joining us this lunch break. It's really nice to see you all. So for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Leila Keikavusi, and this hour will be concentrating on menopause well-being. So whether you've joined us because you feel a bit tired, exhausted, foggy in your brain, flat, and or maybe wide awake at 3 a.m. or simply just not feeling like your usual self, this webinar is really for you. It's about resetting, rebalancing, and it's about building your your personal plan on what fits around your lifestyle and your work and family and ambitions to move forward in and thrive through this journey of menopause. As a menopause specialist, I see women every single day, and they are highly functioning, capable, but quietly struggling. They often in clinic, they often talk about or say things like, I don't recognize myself, or my energy has disappeared, I'm very fatigued, my motivation has gone. Is this just aging process or is something wrong? But the truth is that menopause care goes beyond hormones and hormone replacement therapy. So today we're not concentrating on, we can, of course, any talk to do with menopause, we can't not talk about hormones because that's the cornerstone of what menopause care is about. But it's not just about that. It's about your sleep, your nutrition and stress, and really taking a more closer look at what you can do, how you can help yourself to reach that sense of well-being, to have a better quality of life. As I said, menopause is not just a hormonal event, it's a neuroendocrine transition. It's both to do with our hormones and with our brain, and how this transition affects our brain, our metabolism, our nervous system, and emotional resilience. And when we understand that, when you have a better understanding of what's going on, when it's happening, we stop blaming ourselves and we start to form good strategy to move forward and to thrive, not just to go through the motions. So again, starting from the all-important hormones, I'll be going over a little bit about their actions of the key hormones in perimenopause and menopause. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and thyroid hormones. And I've put all of these names of hormones there purposefully because I want you to understand that each one is as important as the next. So often we just concentrate on estrogen and progesterone as the two main female sex hormones and what happens when these hormones are depleted during perimenopause and menopause. But testosterone, which is often, we know it as the male hormone, and all women make it and they need it, is crucially important when it comes to that sense of well-being and quality of life. And I'll go into details of each one in the next few slides. Cortisol, of course, is the stress hormone. Again, really, really important in the context of how well we can control our symptoms and the severity, intensity, and why sometimes, despite having some hormone replacement therapy and feeling good, then you go through a phase when you don't have the good symptom control and the reasons beyond it. Thyroid hormone, I put it because if you have a genetic predisposition to have thyroid problems, like, for example, some women have a family history of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune thyroid, underactive thyroid. They tend to be diagnosed with these issues during perimenopause and menopause because all of these hormones are interlinked. It's really, the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they also have a protective effect on the sort of how much and how well the other hormones are being produced and what effect they have. So often when they go out of production, the estrogen and progesterone, that's when we start seeing problems with thyroid, and quite a lot higher incidence, for example, of diagnosis of underactive thyroid during menopause and perimenopause. So estrogen is the top and the main female sex hormone. It plays a huge role in our brain function, and it does this by supporting production of really important chemicals called neurotransmitters. Some of them, I've named them here: serotonin and dopamine, which is really important in our mood stability, in how happy we feel, how much we can also learn and remember things. So it influences our memory, our recall, and also it's really important in our temperature control and sleep. Temperature control, of course, the main center for it is our brain, and again, estrogen has a crucial role to play in that part of the brain. Progesterone is the hormone that is released when we ovulate. So, women who are still menstruating or before they hit the perimenopause, mid-cycle, sometime in the mid-cycle or exactly 2 weeks before the start of the next cycle, they have ovulation. And when you ovulate, you release a hormone called progesterone that is really important for its calming effect. It works on the GABA receptors on our brain, and GABA is sort of a neural calming effect. So it helps to maintain sleep. It also helps us to be in charge of our anxiety level. So in very early on in perimenopause, when a woman can still have quite regular cycles, but they're not necessarily ovulating with every cycle, they're lacking this particular hormone, progesterone, and that's when they start waking up in the middle of the night, that the very common 3-4 a.m. waking, and then they're not feeling particularly hot, they don't need to use the bathroom, it's just that they're awake. That can kickstart an anxiety, the rapid heartbeat, and prevent them from falling back asleep. And also just the scattered anxiety, or even worse, panic attacks throughout the day as well. So that is an early sign that you should be getting some help and get some investigations to find out what's going on to your hormonal levels and hormone balance between the estrogen and progesterone. If there's difficulty with sleep, waking up early in the early hours of the morning, or rising anxiety in someone who have anxiety in the past. Testosterone has many different roles in our body. Of course, it influences libido, but it's also really important in our cognition, in how well, in sort of the confidence to make decisions, how quickly we make decisions, our motivation to achieve, and also our general energy, metabolism, and our muscle mass. So it's a crucial, and it's almost in a lot of women who have hormone replacement therapy, it seems to be the missing link, because they have replacement of estrogen and progesterone quite early on, especially if they approach their healthcare provider or their specialist with a set of symptoms, but often they don't get checked for testosterone, and especially if they don't particularly complain of any of these. So if you're doing the same level of exercise as before, but you don't see the same benefit as regards to muscle mass, firmness, etc., that's when you should actually check your testosterone level and find out whether that can be replaced and improve your cognition, metabolism, libido, etc. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's released by our adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys. It's really important on how we deal with the stress. So it's really crucial, and the production of cortisol, it bypasses the production of the other sex hormones. So if you're feeling stressed or for whatever reason anxious, you need cortisol to take you through the day, and that takes precedence over making other hormones. Hormone production in our body it works in symphony with one another. So it's a hormonal cascade and they're all interlinked. They don't usually work in isolation. So when you see a sort of an increase in cortisol or a reduction in cortisol, that actually influences the production of our other hormones. So people who have got chronic stress, they often start seeing changes to their menstrual cycle, and that's very common. You may have experienced that yourselves or seen it in colleagues or relatives. If somebody's going through bereavement, they've had major surgery, they may have had major accidents, or just going through a particularly stressful time in life, they do complain if you ask them directly about changes in their menstrual cycle, and of course the knock-on effect on the hormone levels. It can actually push someone into an earlier menopause. We see that in women who have had major accidents or major surgeries in a younger age, that they may not even actually start having menstrual cycles after their recovery phase. Cortisol affects our weight and cravings. Of course, when you're dealing with a fight or flight situation, you need the carbohydrates, the sugars to fight it, or to run away from it. So it's very natural for women to start gaining weight, especially around the midsection. And often, menopausal women, when they see changes to their weight, they become even tougher on themselves, on the level of exercise, the number of times they visit the gym, or their quantity of calories they're intaking, and that actually has a negative knock-on effect on their cortisol level. So you're going to this vicious cycle that can't be helped with that. And of course, it affects our mood, how resilient we are with whatever is thrown at us. Sleep is crucially important in management and that sense of well-being and high quality of life as we transition through menopause and reach the menopause. And our sleep is disturbed due to different reasons. I mean, the obvious one, of course, is the night sweats. If somebody's having multiple episodes of sweating or heat during the night, that wakes them up. But also the hormonal fluctuations in the absence of night sweat. So early on, I talked about progesterone being one of the important hormones that maintains our sleep. So even in women who have estrogen replacement or enough estrogen, they're still perimenopausal and they're making enough estrogen. If they don't have progesterone on board, so that would be either in a perimenopausal woman who is not ovulating every time, or perhaps they've had a hysterectomy and only have estrogen being replaced. And that's a very sort of conservative, very traditional way of offering hormone replacement to a woman who's had hysterectomy, just estrogen. They may still struggle with their sleep, and what they need is that hormonal balance and controlling the fluctuations in the balance between estrogen and progesterone. Also, for women who have racing thoughts, that they have clinical anxiety, of course, that can affect their sleep as well. Circadian rhythm is your body's internal 24-hour clock. It helps to regulate when it basically helps you regulate when you're awake and when you're sleepy, and how your hormones are released, your body temperature, energy levels, your mood, even your digestion. How you can help to achieve that circadian rhythm, because you need your hormones for that. And often when you come to latter stages of perimenopause, the hormonal imbalances and fluctuations can negatively impact your circadian rhythm. But if you have a consistent sleep schedule, if you make sure that your bedroom is cool and dark, that you have a relaxing bedtime routine, that you do either some mindfulness. I'll go into a little bit more in the next couple of slides, but to have that routine and reduce your light exposure that includes your screen exposure is crucially important to help your circadian rhythm stay healthy and to help that wake sleep cycle. The circadian rhythm is mainly controlled by light exposure, so especially the morning daylight. So when it's aligned, you feel more alert during the day and you sleep better at night. When it is disturbed, so if you're having late nights or you have late night screen time, irregular sleep pattern, you're stressed out, you have menopause related maybe night waking, you may experience fatigue or a poor sleep or low mood, brain fog, reduced motivation happening all at once. In perimenopause and menopause, hormonal changes can make the circadian rhythm more sensitive. So which is why basically consistent sleep times, morning light, good sleep hygiene become even more crucial when you're transitioning. And sleep, if I had to, because of course, when we talk about well-being and rebalancing, we have to talk about sleep, our nutrition, our exercise, and they all have really important role. But for someone who's struggling with their fatigue or cognition, brain function, their memory, if I had to choose one thing, it would be their sleep that they need to get right. And of course, if they're having a lot of night sweat, a lot of menopausal symptoms, we can control that with hormone replacement therapy. But alone, HRT won't be enough to completely improve somebody's sleep pattern. They really need to pay attention to all of these things, to all of their nighttime routine and sleep hygiene. Now looking at nutrition, this is really important to have this targeted nutrition during menopause. It's not a rocket science, and it's no different to what is good for your heart, essentially. For the Mediterranean diet, you can see in the picture, we have the good fats, with nuts and fish, etc., the oily fish, and then you have the antioxidants in berries and tomatoes and things like that, and greens. We'll go into details of each one, but good nutrition supports our metabolic health. Again, for those who have a genetic predisposition for type 2 diabetes, those women who know they have a higher number of family members who start becoming diabetic in their 40s, 50s, it's really important to start looking at their nutrition earlier on in their perimenopause. Perimenopause is, of course, the time before you reach the menopause, and it's the golden opportunity. It's the window of opportunity that you can that you can do something for yourself to improve your long-term health and to have an easier time as you transition into menopause. Of course, you can make all these changes once you have reached the menopause, so 12 months after the last menstrual cycle, but to make a meaningful and longer lasting and preventative sort of action to your health, it is a really good idea to start this before you hit that point. Nutrition is, of course, very important when it comes to our brain health as well, and to maintaining our muscle mass, which is really important in our weight management. You need that muscle mass as a way of burning calories and making sure that you don't run into difficulties with weight management. So how we can, what is the most important thing when we look at nutrition in midlife is muscle preservation. That has to take the center role in all of the nutritional advice that we give, as well as our blood sugar control, stabilizing that, so not making sure that you're not spiking blood sugar at various times in the day, especially in the morning. So that morning protein intake is crucial to start the day on the right track, and supporting our metabolic rate. So just counting calories and reducing the calories that you're taking, it doesn't work as well when you reach the midlife and later stages of perimenopause and menopause. And there's various, scientific reasons for that. One is to do with your cortisol. We know that people who are constantly in calorie deficiency state, they have a higher cortisol level, and that cortisol can kickstart a number of things, a number of medical conditions, for example, diabetes, or even your thyroid issues. And so it's really important to look at nutrition as the same way you would maybe look at your HRT and the dosage and how precise everything is being replaced. Healthy fats is also crucial because hormones, just the building block of hormone is cholesterol. So, for example, women who have very reduced fat intake, and that includes the good fats, they even have early onset perimenopause and menopause. So it's really crucial to have the good fats. That's the omega-3s that are also considered to be anti-inflammatory. But as I said, healthy fat, that they're the fats that are in good oils, the olive oil, avocado, oily fish, nuts, walnuts, almonds, things like that. They're really basically the natural way you can give your body the building blocks to make hormones in the perimenopause stage, and even later on in menopause, when your gut takes over the production of a little bit of hormone as well, to give it the building blocks as well. Our gut health is crucial, both in making hormones, because gut, majority of your hormones is made by the ovaries, and some in adrenal glands and some in gut. So it's really important to look after our gut, especially when we come to this midlife phase of life. It's also really important for people who are having hormone replacement therapy, because of course you want to be able to process hormones out of your system in a timely manner, so that you don't get accumulation of hormones, because that's when you start getting side effects like breast tenderness, like spotting and bleeding, because there's a buildup of hormones. And so, if you have a particular tendency, so if there's inflammatory bowel problems, it's really important to get on top of that alongside your menopausal health. But also, if there's indigestion, if there's acid reflux, all of that makes a difference to how well you are metabolizing hormones out of your system, and how much hormones you have the ability of making apart from the hormones that are from ovaries. In order to prevent our energy crashes, because that's a very important and very common complaint, especially from working women, that they have crashes in their energy level after sometimes, or in mid-afternoon. And in order to prevent that from happening, and I think it was actually one of the questions that has come in as well, the crash in energy level, is to try to modulate the glucose fluctuations throughout the day. And you do that by making sure that the insulin is a hormone that is released by your pancreas, that helps the sugar to go from the blood inside your cells, so that it's not just hanging around, it's doing its job. So, and in order to prevent spikes in your insulin or glucose, you just have to have the sort of high protein, low sugar, especially the artificial sugars, so the added sugar, not the complex sugars. It also reduces the cravings, and it helps to stabilize mood, especially in those who have irritability and anger issues throughout the day. Dehydration affects our menopause in a very negative way. We need, your cells need to be hydrated in order for even the receptors to work properly, the hormone receptors. And sipping regularly on water and it's much better than catching up. It's very difficult to catch up and very difficult for women to start drinking liters of water. But if you start the day, so this is all about knowing how to incorporate all of this into your lifestyle so that you can stay on top of all these elements that we're talking about. So start the day by hydrating yourself and balance your fluids with electrolytes as well, especially if you have multiple hot flushes in the day. When we're flushing, we sweat a lot, and with that, we're losing salts from our body as well. So it's important to replace both the electrolytes and the fluids. You need to also be strategic with your caffeine and alcohol intake. So for each coffee or alcoholic beverage, add an extra glass of water right alongside or immediately afterwards. It really supports your temperature regulation later on in the day, especially at bedtime, and it prevents fatigue and tiredness. If we talk about, I get asked this quite a lot, what exercises should I be doing to help my hormonal support? It's all about movement, not necessarily. I mean, we will talk about in the next slide about the strength and how to build muscle, etc. But it's more to do with, if we look at exercise from improvement in energy point of view, enhancing your mood, it's about movement. So if you know that you have a very sedentary type of lifestyle, or you're sitting behind a desk looking at computers all day, it's important to even put your alarm clock on to remind you, as a reminder, to just stand up and move around a little bit. It helps. These little movements really have an impact on your bone density as well. It's just bearing your own weight, walking around. If you can go out for a brisk walk, even if it's for 5-10 minutes, it supports not only your mood and energy, but your metabolism and your goal in achieving your whatever weight that you're happy with. Of course, we talk about bone health, and we know that at perimenopause, there's a high bone loss phase in life. So, especially for those who have a genetic predisposition to osteopenia, which is a step before osteoporosis or osteoporosis. So you have your mom or your sisters, your first degree female relatives with this condition. It's really important to make sure that, as well as your cardiovascular exercise, as well as just moving around, that you are doing targeted strength training to make sure that your ligaments, your joints, and your bone stays strong and healthy. That reduces the risk of the bone loss later on in life. Moderate, intense aerobic exercise is what we're looking for when we talk about. So, a lot, just like the nutrition that we looked at, the importance of protein, the importance of good fat in the diet, and reducing the quantity of the simple carbohydrates, the artificial sugars. The same goes with exercise. So you really have to mindfully and purposefully look at your exercise regime and make sure that you have elements of each one in your routine on a weekly basis. So you want to make sure that your heart is supported, that you improve your stamina, and with that comes the higher energy levels the following day. And also the release of endorphin that comes with that rise and maintenance of a higher heart rate improves your mood. It's your sort of natural antidepressant. Mobility and flexibility, not just for that particular phase in life, but for later on, and when we get to older age, the fall and risk of fall becomes higher, and it's has a lot of morbidity and mortality with that. So in order to reduce that, it's a really good idea to spend some time building our flexibility in the fourth, fifth, sixth decades of life. So this is things like Pilates or yoga that can, or dancing, that can help to make our posture better, to get rid of joint stiffness, which is very common in perimenopause due to lack of the anti-inflammatory sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. But this really helps. So, to have to incorporate both the cardiovascular, the strength training, and something like yoga and Pilates into your weekly routine. If just so that it's the advice is that you should be doing 150 minutes of moderate exercise or activity per week. And the strength training for for prevention of bone loss should be twice a week at least. And really, you should be moving on a daily basis. That's not just for your cardiovascular health and bone health, but for your mood and sense of well-being. I talked about the neuroendocrine action of or interaction in menopause. Your thoughts, your nervous system, and hormones are in constant conversation with one another. That's what the neuroendocrine is, just our system of hormone in our body, and neuro is our central nervous system and our brain. So supporting one helps stabilize the others, and it is especially important during menopause. You can't really have a significant improvement in your menopausal symptoms just with HRT and hormone replacement if you're not paying attention to how well you're dealing with your stress level, with your cortisol, and understanding the connection between these. It has a knock-on effect, and as cortisol, which is our stress hormone, not only does it do all the things that I mentioned with the spike in our sugar levels and making our insulin less active, but it also makes the hormone receptors less responsive to the hormones that you may have or you're taking. So if you sometimes clinically in a clinic, we see women who've had quite good control of their symptoms for a few years, and then they're taking their HRT as well as before, and as the dosage hasn't really changed. They're postmenopausal, so we know that they're physiologically they're not fluctuating their hormone levels, but suddenly they come into this difficulty with reoccurrence of some symptoms. And it's a really good idea to look at their stress levels and to see, because sometimes we don't even realize that we're going through a stressful time until you've had that mindful or time to think about it, to really dig deep and find out, is there a particular, am I going to bed a bit later? Am I constantly on my phone? Have I had a stressful few months at work? And we see that, yes. And for the treatment, it's really important to know this, because the solution isn't to just increase the hormone levels, but it's to reduce the cortisol. And we do that, that's another talk in itself, how we do that. But you can have ways both on your own and help with healthcare providers to improve your cortisol level. Cortisol usually starts very high first thing in the morning so that we can cope with the day, and it should go through a very smooth fall as the day goes by, so that it's very low just before we go to bed. But of course, you can start very low first thing in the morning, and that's usually when, in women who describe a very sort of slow or groggy start to the day, or low energy first thing in the morning, despite even having a good night's sleep, or women who spiked cortisol in the afternoon, which then prevents them from falling asleep at night. So how can we help ourselves? Some of the lifestyle techniques that lower cholesterol and improve our resilience, because of course we know that these systems are connected. So small lifestyle changes can have a wide effect on our cortisol level. But the thing you can do just from anywhere is the calm breathing. It really influences how it can lower your cortisol level. And a better sleep, which improves your energy and mood, and of course the regular movement that I talked about, it boosts brain chemicals and hormone balance, and feeling supported, social connectivity. It improves our emotional and hormonal resilience. We are social beings, and we do better when that connection is there. That's why lifestyle strategies can meaningfully improve our symptoms, even alongside medical treatment, alongside or first starting with those sort of lifestyle modifications before we move on to hormonal treatment. Just looking at breath work for stress regulation in a bit more detail, because that's something that you can do and I think you can incorporate into your everyday reset quite easily. It's best for general stress, for if you're experiencing palpitations with anxiety or with palpitations with hot flushes, or if you just feel a bit wired or tired. How you can do this is to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds and breathe out for 6 seconds. So the breathing out, the exhaling needs to be a little bit longer. And it's that smooth and quiet breathing and continuing that for about 2 to 5 minutes that helps to reduce your cortisol. And you can be in charge of that. It's great if you have practiced it, that you can find a quiet moment. You can even use the bathroom at work or sitting at your desk. You literally just need a few minutes, and you have to just count and breathe in for 4 or 5 seconds, breathe out for 6, 7 seconds, and that's it. Longer exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, our calming nervous system, and it lowers our cholesterol. And you can be in charge of that. And the social connectivity, how it really helps us. It lowers our stress levels. It supports our mood regulation and brain chemicals in a way that is quite fantastic, making it a powerful, often overlooked part of menopause care. So these positive social interactions can be conversations, can be laughter, feeling understood. And that's why it's important, that even at workplace, if you have a policy, you have mentors or champions that work in menopause sector, that just signals to you that your workplace understands about menopause, that it's okay to talk about it, that there's somebody that listens to you, that immediately, even though you may not have had any medical intervention, but immediately you start feeling better, because you just feel that you don't have to stay quiet or hide your symptoms. It increases oxytocin, a very important connectivity hormone that lowers our stress levels. It promotes calmness, emotional safety. It improves our sleep quality and supports trust and bonding. Oxytocin, for those women who've been through labor ward and childbirth, they may have heard of it in the context of labor ward, because they give it to regulate the contractions. But we make oxytocin naturally, and in different dosages it can be given to women to create these feelings. In midlife, oxytocin helps buffer our stress response, and it becomes more important as estrogen level starts to fluctuate. It also, interestingly, promotes abdominal weight gain. I hear this all the time, even in women who are professional athletes who exercise regularly. They're doing exactly the same diet, exercise routine as they did before, and they complain that midsection abdominal weight is increasing, or girth is increasing. And we really need to be looking at their cortisol level, oxytocin, etc., in order to support them. And that supportive relationships helps keep cortisol in check, helps promote oxytocin secretion as well. And some of the ways that you can track your symptoms, why is important? I promote it during a consultation for those who I know can benefit, but everyone, all menopausal, perimenopausal women can choose to do that. The same way that we can do that with our menstrual cycle symptoms, or just keeping track of our menstrual cycles to give us more sort of detailed look at it so that we can talk about it in a consultation as well. It identifies patterns, which is really important. So, if you're experiencing, for example, you may think that, you're waking up all the time at 2, 3 a.m. But once you start detailed tracking of your symptoms, you may see that, oh, it's only on these 2 occasions, and both these occasions were when I had a bit more alcohol to drink the night before. So it gives you more detailed look at your symptom. It helps with also, so it's, it enhances your self-awareness. It also really improves the consultation quality, because it helps me and other specialists to understand what way we should be going with the treatment, because how often is this symptom happening, what is it linked with, how intense is it. So keeping track of that, or of your symptoms, or journaling, it benefits. Structured journaling, it brings clarity to your symptoms. It reduces also anxiety. Once you've written down, what you want to, what the problem is, it sort of, you've given that anxiety to your, wherever that the journaling was happening, and it's out of your head. It improves the medical care that you receive. And it also helps us to visibly see your progress. This is more or less what we do as clinicians. We are constantly writing down, as you've seen in consultations. I'm typing or writing down, because it's really important to come back to it so we can see where you started from. What if you've been through the clinic, you know that we do the menopause quality of life, which is like a set of questions that you give grades to from 0 to 6. And it's really important to see how much what you've given to what symptom, and how that progresses as you go forward, because it helps us understand what treatment has been effective, what hasn't really worked, what symptoms that we need to concentrate on and help you with. In turn, it turns menopause really into something that feels out of control often for women, and very sort of haphazard, and you don't know how often what's happening, and you don't know when the hot flushes are coming, and you don't feel in control, into something that can be understood and managed very carefully. There are, like everything else, there are advantages and limitations to tracking as well, especially when it comes to, there's many apps, digital tracking. Digital tracking is very useful support tool. It's, of course, it's not, you don't have to use an app, you can just use a pen and paper, but it's, we all have a number of apps on our phone, and it keeps everything in one place, it's good. But it also has its limitations. Especially when it's overused. I don't want digital tracking to become stressful, or for you to constantly be monitoring. It's like people who are sitting on borderline high blood pressure, and we ask them to monitor their blood pressure at home. Sometimes, when they return, we see like in 1 week they've had like 20 readings, and that itself can create anxiety and worsen the symptoms. I don't mean that, but it's the goal should be about understanding what's going on, not about stressing over, okay, I need to jot down on one, and then I'm fixated on this app. There are many different ones, so we can talk about that a little bit later. But monitoring our progress meaningfully, so looking for daily changes that occur, not daily like weekly or even monthly changes that happen. So often, in the initial consultation, I get asked, how fast can I see results? How fast can I expect to see changes to my symptoms? And it takes a couple of months. It takes sometimes, the earliest really 6 to 8 weeks before you can see monitor changes. Sometimes some symptoms get better in the first few weeks, but then they return until we sort of tweak the dosage of HRT if you are in a group of women who are taking HRT, but we're trying to look at what's going on overall, not like, on this day this happened and then the next day I didn't have it on the, because of course, different things that we do throughout the day can also have influences on our even heat control, on how happy we feel, how anxious we are, what a bad night we've had, or etc. So it does combine both the objective and subjectively how you're feeling. So there's certain grades that there's certain objective things that it asks, and then there's a space for you to say how you feel in yourself. So it helps, yeah. And yeah, in menopause care, generally, behavioral change is not about willpower. It is about creating that sustainable, small adjustments that work with hormonal shifts, not against them. So, we know, especially in perimenopause, we're going through huge fluctuations. So some months you're producing a lot of hormones, some months not quite, and you can shift from one set of symptoms to another depending on what your hormone levels are doing. So we want to be able to recognize, first of all, that, I often take a little bit of time to educate anybody that I see about these set of symptoms are, for example, from estrogen deficiency. These are from excess estrogen. Because it helps, I'm not there all the time and it's unreasonable to expect somebody to have multiple blood tests in a month to find out whether they're high, low, deficient, or surplus in a hormone level. So it's really good to get to know your body, your symptoms, and what, how you can help yourself. Menopause behavioral change works best when it is small, when it is structured, and it's all about finding those little changes that help you, and it also helps you with self-compassion. It helps you, it's basically how you would give advice to somewhat your sister, your best friend. You're kind, you're compassionate when you're giving that. So it helps you exercise that same kindness and compassion when it comes to yourself. So I know I'm spending a little bit of time on this because we, especially for, a lot of women are very assertive. They want to make a change. They're ready to go. They're very passionate about it, which is great. But it's really, we almost want to take that back and say, the tiny steps are easier because it's easier for our brain. It's easier on our cortisol level. We can maintain it for longer. And it links the habits to routines. So it's all about creating the habit in your lifestyle that suits it, making it easier for you to go through that. So a helpful mindset shift would be something is always better than nothing. So if you haven't achieved your full workout in the gym, or you've had a maybe bad start from a nutrition point of view in the day, is not to continue, because that's the likely event to happen. So if you start the day with a bad choice of breakfast, is to say, well, okay, I've lost it today. That's it. I'm going to eat bad the whole entire day. And then, of course, that creates even worse symptom management throughout, in the evening at bedtime. And then you have a bad night's sleep, your cortisol goes up, and then you start even the next day on a bad note. But to say, okay, well, I had a, bad start to this, or I didn't achieve that, or I didn't manage to do my full half an hour or an hour, but it's okay. Even if it was 5 minutes, even if it was 10 minutes, I had a good snack, I had a good lunch. I know I didn't do well on that one. So it's not to discipline yourself and be harsh, but or put pressure, but of your body and nervous system during this hormonal change. As I said, exactly like how you would mentor, or how you would speak to your best buddy or to your sister. You would never use those harsh words or say, well, yes, you haven't been to the gym to this week, so you may as well not go and start from 2 weeks time because you've lost it. And when to seek medical help, because you can, well, those things that we talked about are all in your control. You can do a lot of that at home or wherever you are. But there comes a time when you feel, okay, I've done all of that, but still I don't feel so great. And so that's when if your symptoms are persisting despite the lifestyle modifications that you've made, despite the changes that you've made and mindfulness and exercises that you're doing, and you really see a change to your mood or cognition, you're really struggling to feel happy, to feel fulfilled, and you just feel that, I'm just doing the whatever that is expected of me at home and work, but I'm not really enjoying myself. Or if your sleep is very disrupted and impacting your life, that's when you should really try to get some medical help and see how we can add to that lifestyle changes that you've made. So I hope I've been able to demonstrate how hormone influences your whole body well-being, not just those symptoms or the common symptoms that you may have heard of, the hot flushes and night sweats, and how much the lifestyle strategies can improve your symptoms. And you're in charge of that. You shouldn't feel that there's nothing I can do, or I've tried HRT for a few months and it gave me side effects, so I'm just coming off that and it's just part of life. I have to accept it as part of aging. And tracking does help, but again, like everything else, it needs to be done mindfully so that it's not creating anxiety. I think we've come to the end of the presentation.